I could tell the moment that I saw him, he was nothing but the troublemaking kind.
I'm Mark Steele, and I would claim that in almost every major event over the last 30 years, I've played a small and insignificant role. I didn't create punk, but I was in a dreadful punk band. I've never commanded troops in a war, but I have been on marches against them happening. And in this series, I'm going to return to the people and the places and the ideas that I've come into contact with. Because it seems to me that the ideas of our times and the world events that create them shape our lives far more than we realise. Somebody might define themselves as a vegetarian, which is fine, but if the same person had lived 500 years ago, they'd have probably enjoyed skinning rabbits, and if they'd seen someone grilling tofu, they'd have grassed them up as a witch. For me, it must have had some effect being brought up in the Kent town Swanley, which consisted of thousands of houses and then nothing. And sometimes you get someone from another town who'll come up and say, "Oh, I'm from a similar sort of place, nothing," and they mean Basingstoke, or somewhere like that. But they've got no idea, because in Swanley there is nothing. Nothing. No cinema, no theatre, just two little pubs. Going up to someone from Swanley and saying you're from a similar place is like going up to Nelson Mandela and saying, "I've had hassle from the old bill myself, so I know exactly how you feel, mate."
When you're growing up in a small town, when you're growing up in a small town, when you're growing up in a small town, you say, no one famous ever came from here.
So as part of this project, I'm going to do a stand-up show in Swanley, which is terrifying. I mean, for a start, there's obviously no theatre or music venue or anywhere to do this show, so it's going to be in a room that is usually used for wedding receptions. Then I just don't think anybody will come. And then if they do, then it'll be my old neighbours and people I was with at school and people whose cars I've probably backed into at some point.
But, of course, it's all changed now, because you look around now, there's all new facilities. Now, if the young people want something to do, they can go and hang around all night at the Asda car park. We never had that. I'm going to go up there later on and go, "You don't know you're born." Hey, I'll tell you what, we didn't have that. If we wanted to hang around because we were bored, drinking cider and kicking stones at each other, we had to go to a recreation ground with a climbing frame strangely shaped like an elephant at the back of a bypass. No. What always puzzled me, you know, the history of Swanley, right? The villa and all that, and the aqueduct, the viaduct, where it's called, down the road there. And I think, now that's interesting. That says something about Swanley, doesn't it? Because the Romans got all the way from Rome, and they were coming over here. They got as far as Ainsford, but they never quite made it to Swanley. I reckon they went in the Lullinston, and everyone went, "Oh, you're not from round here, out." That's what I reckon happened. And there's some poor bloke some poor Roman commander had to go and explain this to his generals. "Why didn't you take the town? But Maximus, our men marched forward with great formations and mighty courage. But the tribes of Swanley kept coming at us with pool cues." "Do what?" was their rallying cry. What is the town that Swanley is twinned with now? Verrières-le-Buisson or something? Which I think is quite sweet, and there's obviously some flower connection there, isn't there? Because there's all flowers down there by the sign that says, you know, floral exchange and a cultural exchange thing, and there's probably now a sweet little town in France, and people now wander around there going, "Oi, mush, you going up as the car park?" And then, I think my generation especially people up in a place like Swanley, see, we got very frustrated because we're all sort of walking around, fed up. And then we got annoyed, and then the older generation got fed up with us, which maybe you couldn't blame them. And then, see, they had a stability in their lives, I think. Everything seemed to be going all right, and then there was a new gadget would come every year. There'd be a telephone or a television or a fridge or a vacuum cleaner, things like that. And it seemed like things were getting better, and they'd ask you what you were going to do when you grew up. From the time you were about 7, what are you going to do? Go, "I'll tell you what, get a trade. That's what you want to do, get a trade, my son." Yeah? And the thing is, see, we didn't appear to be grateful for that, it seemed to me, because, you know, we went to work, and the first sort of jobs I had, like a miserable office job. And they try to make out, the older people there try to make out that it's really important and matters and exciting. And you're in your first day there, and they come in to show you around. Here we are. It's lovely to have you with us. And this is where you're going to be sitting here, you see. Yeah, it's lovely. So your job, you'll be opposite Harold. He's been here for 35 years. Isn't that marvellous? Now, your job, you see, you get the newspapers brought in every day, you see, there, and you have to go through the papers very carefully, one by one, and colour in the O's. See what I mean? Just housing estate after housing estate. Oh, I don't remember. They're simply sandwiches. Oh, well, I don't remember any of this. Now, honestly, that you see there, it's almost like in another place. Imagine if you go back, normal people going back to their sort of hometowns and going, oh, God, there's a whole leisure centre and a place with bands and an abseiling club and an airport that I didn't know that was there. In my home, that's what it's like for me, the fact that I'm now suddenly going, oh, I don't remember that carpet shop. Well, I don't know, there's probably 2,000 houses on here, and yet there are probably only 5 families that inhabit the lot. There's the Clarks. What were the other ones? Can't remember the other ones. Now, the funniest bit of crime I ever witnessed in Swanley was me and a mate, we decided to get a couple of old cars and try and do them up and flog them for a few bob. It was a rubbish scheme. And we bought this, it was an old Ford Corsair. I think we bought it for a tenner or something ridiculous. And we put it in the Dartford and Swanley Chronicle for 20 quid after we'd polished it. It was a rubbish car. And one of the Clark family come round. I don't really like that way you've all reacted. It's as if to say, you diss him in public, you're dead still. But I'm not. I'm approving of him here, because it was quite a funny thing to do. They came round and he just sort of looked at it and he went, yeah. And then he just got in it and drove off. But that was the thing. It was all that lovely little petty crime that's so pathetic, isn't it? Hey, me?
Mind you, I don't think they listen to Radio 4.
Oh, they do. God, the Clarks and Gardeners question time. I've got a question. This year, my upside-down pram doesn't seem to be flowering. When I was at school, up Swanley School there was something that was... the main thing I did learn from it was just how to put up with violence, I think. And these teachers, the strangest teachers... There was Mr Young. Mr Young would have these little speeches he'd do. He would say, if there'd been a crime in the area and everybody knew it was someone from Swanley School who'd done it, that's when he'd do this big speech. And he'd say, now, some of you know who it was who did this thing. And you might think you're being their friends by protecting them, but let me tell you this. If you are really their friends, you will come up to me after assembly and tell me who it was so I can put them in Borstal. I'm here in this pleasant little Kentish pub in the village of Otford with Mr Hood, my old history teacher, who I can't bring myself to call him anything other than Mr Hood, and I feel slightly uneasy that I'm drinking a pint of beer because I feel like at any moment he's going to say, what's in that?
But at least you've actually paid for it. So.
And I also feel slightly uneasy that I'm not standing up.
I mean, I always had sort of positive memories of your good self, because it seems to me what teachers particularly welcome in pupils are kids who are interesting, and obviously kids who are interested in what you're teaching. Now, whether you remember this or not, you certainly always gave the impression that you were interested in matters political, matters historical, even from an early age. You've actually become somebody who rather rejected, was unhappy at school, certainly didn't enjoy it, and left, if you like, under a bit of a cloud, I suppose, inevitably. But you've actually become a teacher, so you've actually become a very interesting educationalist. That's what you've done, haven't you?
For some reason, the bit I like most about that is saying I left under a cloud. There's something that makes me feel quite, I did something positive then, I left under a cloud.
Now I'm a union man.
There was another side to the atmosphere in the 70s that must have stuck with me, which is the idea that the working class mattered. On the news, there always seemed to be talk of some strike or other. The Strawbs had this big hit with a song called Part of the Union. And then Mike Yarwood, BBC One, Saturday night, prime time, he'd do impressions of union leaders, and everybody knew who they were, as if they were major celebrities.
I'd like to turn to Lord Vic Feather. Where do you think the TUC's priority should lie?
Well, I think, Robin, the TUC's priority should lie in the House of Lords. I mean, let's face it, £8.50 for an appearance is not enough for a lord. But we intend to do something about it. I'm going to get Lord Olivier to bring all the actors out on strike, Lord Snowden to bring all the photographers out on strike, and the Marquis of Bath is going to bring all the lions out on strike.
I must have been about 16 when the Woodlands Arts Centre started. It's just a sort of little bar where they've got a room where you can put things on. So there was just a little series of films that were put on. Blazing Saddles, Confessions of a Window Cleaner, another Confessions thing with Robin Asquith, I think he was a taxi driver. And I went every week, that was, bear in mind how the nature of this place, that to go to see Confessions of a Window Cleaner, that would be the equivalent of, say, you lived in West Norwood, you decided to go and see a 7-hour version of the Ring Cycle. Ooh, go to the Confessions of a Window Cleaner. Arc at you, going down the pub and playing darts and having a fight in the toilet with someone you've never met before. Not good enough for you, I suppose. Gay, I suppose.
The worst thing you could call anybody was gay back in the 70s. At different times then, I suppose. And I remember sort of, not that we knew anyone who was gay, we knew loads of things made you sort of gay in our mind, like staying in on a Saturday night, buying a flower, reading a book, not being able to park your car first time in a tight space. That's a bit of an angle, you queer. I was in Dartford. You're not supposed to cheer for... You're not all from Dartford, are you? Don't let me tell you, there's not a single person here from Swanley. Dartford's the big city. That's like Las Vegas to us. Oh, we go to Dartford. That's where you go for your honeymoon. Dartford, big, exciting Dartford. And so I had to go over there every day and serve people with petrol for Mr. Bryce, who rang the garage there. And it was all right, I quite enjoyed it. But then what happened, there was this fleet of lorries owned by a carpet company. And they didn't have to pay for the petrol. They just put 10 gallons in, and you wrote 10 gallons down on the sheet. And then at the end of the week, you sent off the sheet to their company, and they paid it, and that was that. So what the driver had come in, he'd say, stick 10 gallons in, put us down for 12, mate. Oh, right, I'll get yeah. So you put 12 down, and then the garage is 2 gallons in credit, isn't it? So you can take that out of the till, and it all balances up. Should I really be doing this here? I'll still be arrested for something 25 years ago. Right, so we'd do these little fiddles, and it would, but went the way of all workplace scams, is that people started getting greedy, and they'd come in and go, I'll tell you what, stick 8 gallons in, put us down for 14. So money was coming in from all day long. I was just sharing money with these drivers. I've never been so rich in my life. A fiver, oh yeah, 8 quid, mate. And oh, right, another tenner. There we go. I got to the point where the boss had come around with the wages, and I think, oh, I forgot all about them.
But then in the middle of the 70s, suddenly the stability collapsed. There was a crisis and loads of important-looking people on the television discussing graphs and unemployment and inflation, and for the first time since the war, life must have seemed uncertain. For example, in Dartford, a lorry driver had been laid off, so he went round looking for work. And one day, he came into the garage that I was working at to see the manager, Tim Bryce, and because he could drive trucks, he was taken on, and I was sacked. The thing is, here we are. We're outside his place. I've just bought some petrol from the garage, and now we've come round to Tim Bryce's little outfit, and we're going to speak to him. I don't know if he'll remember me or remember sacking me. I'll tell you what it feels like. We're just outside the door, and it says Bry's Fabrications, and I've seen like, there it really is. And I feel like it's like that bit in The Godfather where Robert De Niro goes back to the house of the people who murdered his parents and says, come here, I've got something for you, and then slits him from one side to the other. So if this programme never goes out, and it's on account of the fact that I'm doing 25 years, that's probably what's happened. So one reason I thought you might remember me, or the reason I thought you might remember me, you sacked me actually.
Oh, did I? I was warned about this. I've looked up my contract.
Oh right, no, I'm not going to take it to the European Court of Human Rights.
I think there's a statute of limitations here somewhere.
No, I'm not going to claim compensation for all these years later. But as I remember it, there was someone came in looking for work, and so he took my place.
What, you just sacked you like that? That seems a bit cruel.
Well, it does seem a bit cruel.
Sorry about that. If it's the case.
Oh yeah,
it was. Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, I was very upset at the time.
Oh, we all. And it's taken all this time to come out.
No, I have not been for the rest. It's not the case that ever since then I have been sort of seething in bitterness at home. Petrol, I could have been serving petrol if it wasn't for Bryce. Yeah. I've got on with it. I've got on with a couple of other things.
Yeah, it's just a few. Yeah.
But
did you a favour? Really?
No. But there's sometimes at night, just to reminisce, I'll just go out and just put air in random people's tyres. Check people's oil that are just up and down the road, and stuck at the lights.
Seems reasonable. Just to keep your hand in.
Not only that, but I got very annoyed at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised you don't remember this, actually.
Go on then. What have I done now?
Well, I remember stood there in that little office,
yeah, and
I thought, well, I've got to do something here, and this sort of rage that you have. I mean, you're a sort of cauldron of rage anyway at the age of 17 over anything. And I thought I must do something, and there was just conveniently a cup of coffee there, which I threw all over you. And when I got my last week's wages, there was the £3, as I remember, taken out of it for dry cleaning.
Although I don't remember, I'm deeply sorry. It's only offence caused. No, I'm sorry, I don't remember the coffee incident, but it's probably because, you were probably one of the milder ones. I might have sacked lots of people after you, and they might have attacked me with all sorts of lethal instruments.
That's what I was fearing. That's what I was fearing. I thought, one bloke got a big ball from a building site knocked down the side of the garage.
That's it, yeah. It was just everyday occurrence.
So how many people do you think you sacked over the years?
Oh, I hate to think. No, it's not that many. I'm not the Genghis Khan of the petrol industry.
I don't know. There's another thing no one ever says usually. Anyone here from Alton Kirby? I was a milkman. I used to deliver milk in Alton Kirby, except I didn't quite often because I was really, really bad at being a milkman. And I used to, sometimes sort of milkmen forget the odd house, but I'd forget whole roads. But then one of my early people that I had to do, really early, about 6 in the morning, was Dave Charnley, the boxing man. Ex-light heavyweight boxing champion of Europe or something. And so one morning, about 6 o'clock, 6:15, I was just sort of backing the float round, like to sort of get to his house and then back round and come back up the other way. And I was just backing it round, and I don't know, something went wrong. And I just went straight through his wife's BMW. And it was the most frustrating minute of my life because I thought, right, just get away quick. I must be the only person in the world who's ever tried to make a quick getaway in a milk truck. It's like one of them dreams where you can't get away. Come on! Come on, let me get it up! Move! Expecting her to just come walking past and go, where are you going? You've just wrecked my car. One result of this new uncertainty was that some people blamed it on anything that was new, as if it had all been all right until the blacks and the gays and the long-haired youth came along and spoilt everything. So a section of our generation responded to that by going, well, stuff your cosy, sing something simple world, we never wanted it anyway. And we created punk.
The brilliant thing is sometimes you still see this. You still see sort of like 20-year-olds in punk bands. Like I was at a Reading Festival last year and there was a band that was just all full of... And it was the first band on, 11 in the morning. They come on just ranting so brilliantly. You didn't know what. It was like... And one of them did actually end up the introduction by going, "What's going on here on the school sports day?" What can he have been singing about? To the one that sack race, not you! I've never found out. You barged me on while I dropped the spoon! And I was just thinking, I was just so impressed that anyone could be that angry that early in the morning.
On the opposite side, there was a surge in popularity for the National Front, the fascist group. And I witnessed this at a gig by the Lurkers in Woolwich. And the Lurkers hadn't been playing for very long, and suddenly this crowd of fascist skinheads came in and attacked the crowd. And following this, I resolved that I would join the Anti-Nazi League. And we have managed to find the drummer from that gig, Pete Haynes. Do you remember the gig, Pete?
I certainly do, and I'm still running. I'm in Belfast at the moment. But I remember it very well. That was one of the worst ones we did. And why these people picked on us, I don't know, because we didn't encourage it. Like certain groups used to encourage that kind of thing.
What was you thinking? How can you play if you're sort of thinking, oh, I wonder if it's going to be this song or the next song that the door's going to burst open and a load of skinheads are going to start parading around nutting people?
Yeah, it was grim. It was grim. The worst one we ever did, you know, if you're going to do like a Keystone Cop history of Lurkers' atrocities, or, you know, it's a place in Peterborough where the stage was right next to these double doors, you know, where they have the push bar thing, which is about 3 foot from me, and a Ford Transit backed into it. And these blokes come jumping out with baseball bats and armbands on.
Backed into the gig?
Yeah, they backed through the door. And they just piled out the van, you know, laying into people, you see.
Did you ever get any of them with a snare or anything?
No, I was punched, you know. But I was punched at that Woolwich gig as well. You know.
Was you?
Yeah, quite a few of them. Yeah, I was actually knocked out playing the drums in St Austell. The bouncer came and headbutted me apparently when I was playing the drums.
No, it was. I spent most of that period being chased, as I remember. Well, I mean, as an Anti-Nazi League member. Outside Dartford Arndale Centre, we used to hand out these leaflets, and there was these 2 huge skinheads I saw across the road. There was a little badge we used to have at the time, "Pogo on a Nazi." And I thought, oh, it's all right, you know, sort of trying to be optimistic like yourself about the skinheads. Not all skinheads are bad, they're walking across the road, and they've got the Pogo on a Nazi badge on their shirts. And as they get nearer, I see it says Pogo on a Communist. And I just legged it.
Well, I've got to say, my experience of that was different from yours because you were an active fan and you had an interest in this and you had to suffer this kind of thing, and you're right, a lot of that was going on. I didn't really come up against anything.
Well, except that they invaded your gigs on a nightly basis and smashed you around the face and nutted you. But that aside, it was peaceful. They hardly touched you. Fascism, what was all the fuss about?
Yeah, actually,
they burnt my house down one night because they didn't like the drum solo.
Yeah, I did get beaten up a couple of times now I stop and think about it. But yeah, I didn't take it personally, man. It wasn't I didn't see it was anything to do with us, you know. I just thought,
coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was
Not
just...
again.
Yeah.
Just had an unlucky week with fascists.
It used to run through my mind.
Like it's in the stars. Yeah. What, you Taurus? You will have an unlucky week with fascist invasions.
When they were smashing me with the old cymbal stand, I just thought other people live a different life from this. I was just philosophical about it, you know. People joined groups for sort of girls, booze, drugs, you know. We spoke in the back of the van and looked at each other's grazes, you know.
So I looked up a website, this programme we're doing here about Swanley, and I looked up a website for the music scene, because I was really keen on finding something in the... I thought there must be some sort of music scene, there must be some sort of little hip-hop kids or something going on. And I put in music scene and Swanley, and it did come up with some sort of website, and it just said, Swanley music scene, 1, there isn't one. Honestly, this is exactly what he said. 2, try London, they've got one there. I've been testimony at Swanley that we've still stuck to just the 2 pubs. If you don't include the Deja Vu, which I will come on to in a minute. But obviously everyone knows the Deja Vu. They should have reporters from out there, like the war reporters. Behind me is the constant pounding, the crack, crack, the thud, thud of the violence that seems to go ever and ever on. We hear that one of the factions has put forward a statement, and this is their demands. Oi, you were looking at my bird, it says.
And the gig in Swanley that I thought would be deserted was packed, and everyone was incredibly friendly and seemed to be quite happy for their town to be insulted. Afterwards, I spoke to Kevin, who used to live just across the road from where the gig was, and since leaving Swanley, he has become an anti-war activist. And I said to him that given the number of people on the anti-war marches in recent times, there must have been quite a group that's gone from Swanley to those marches.
So you've become sort of radical. You've gone like sort of a few years down the road. You've gone a little bit down the same journey that I have from Swanley to radicalism and that.
I went to Australia to make a break from Swanley.
Right.
Quite a break. But and then coming back to Swanley afterwards, you're looking for radical activity, and where you're supposed to check the notice board at Asda or something like that, and there just isn't a Swanley Stop the War group, or I'm racking my brains for a story, and the only one I can think of is the story about the Harvester mascots, where they had Wurzel Gummidge and Aunt Sally as these mascots in Swanley, and they disappeared one day, and no one could find them. And about a week later, they appeared on top of the Swanley police station, and it was like an urban myth. Everyone was talking about this, and this was like the biggest event to ever happen in Swanley.
That was the storming of the Bastille.
That was it.
Swanley.
That was our moment.
As a protest, it's not quite Martin Luther King, I grant you, but it is something. For me, though, when I was 18, the combination of having lived in Swanley, of a world economic slump, of being sacked by Tim Bryce and of seeing the lurkers, led me to see 2 things. Firstly, that the world wasn't fair, and secondly, that the actions that we all make can make a difference. I resolved to become an active socialist, and convinced that now I'd made this pledge, within a year the world would be run by a workers' collective that had abolished war, poverty and Sing Something Simple. And 6 months later, Margaret Thatcher was elected. Not only had I not changed the world, I was a bloody jinx.
The revolution starts now.